listen to reason? Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah. Gotta get away from this illusion for the sake of the world. This delusion, it's gotta go. Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Atheist Experience. I'm Matt Dillahunty. Joining me this week, Jen Peeples. Welcome again.
Thank you.
It just seems like yesterday.
I know.
Or a week ago or so.
I know.
Yeah, Martin couldn't make it today, and so we did some last minute shuffling of the schedule. This is a live program. It's September 18th, 2011. We're broadcasting from Austin, Texas, and it's a live call-in program. We'll have the number up for you shortly so that you can call in. We're sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. You can find out more about the ACA by visiting www.atheist-community.org. There you'll find a frequently asked questions page, information on how to contact us, position statements. You can dig around and find our bylaws and all kinds of stuff there at the website. Additionally, the Atheist Experience blog, which is currently at atheistexperience.blogspot.com, is now the official ACA blog as well. There may be some changes coming to that in the near future. We'll let you know as that happens. And in addition to this program, the ACA also sponsors a internet-only podcast called The Nonprofits. That's PROPHETS. And you can go to nonprofitsradio.com for more information. We're live every Saturday morning on that program, and it'll be next Saturday at 10:30 will be the next show. It's 10:30 Central. And this program airs on Sundays from 4:30 Central to 5:30 Central. Just for all the people who call in like with 5 minutes left in the show going, oh, I didn't know. Yeah, it's a 1 hour show, and try to get in early. That way we'll be able to take your calls. After the show's over, any interested people who want to can go to dinner with us at El Arroyo. They'll have the address up right here in just a second, I'm sure. But if you're coming down to preach, proselytize, or provoke, please don't. Oh, Matt, your mic is rubbing against your shirt, or it's the fan. We don't know. It's the fan.
I think it's the fan.
Yeah, just aim it back further. Live professional TV every week. We've done a little bit of tweaking with the audio stuff. We're hoping to have a little bit of better luck with the telephones today, but there are no guarantees. And in addition to the Nonprofits podcast and this program, the ACA also has another new podcast called Godless Bitches, which records every Monday. And we try to get it posted Monday night. It addresses feminism, women's issues, sexuality, etc., from a secular point of view. And it's hosted by my wife and features Jen and Tracy and Linnea and guests, and who knows who's going to be on there. So, some events coming up on October 1st. The ACA is having its annual back cruise. If you haven't signed up already, you can do so online. I don't know what's wrong with you. It's awesome. We take a boat out on the lake, and we watch Austin's large population of metropolitan bats, which means they wear kind of nice clothes when they go out to eat insects and stuff. And we bring out drinks and food and just generally have a good time visiting with everybody. Also, October 7th, 8th, and 9th, that weekend is the Texas Free Thought Convention / Atheist Alliance America Convention. I'll be there, as well as P.Z. Myers and Richard Dawkins and Michael Shermer and just a whole bunch of people. So visit Texas Free Thought Convention for more information. It may or may not be too late to sign up for that, but you can check out all the information at the website. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Actually, I think you can still sign up for the Bat Cruise because I just did.
Oh, the Bat Cruise, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm worried about whether or not you can still sign up for the Free Thought Convention.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I missed that. Yeah.
I didn't actually have to go through that process, so I'm not quite sure what's left on there. You had something you wanted to address, or did you want to go to calls, or did we decide?
Yeah, actually, one of the things that I didn't talk about last weekend.
I have to interrupt, because
Okay.
it's part of the announcements and stuff. Something happened today that I was supposed to announce. Actually, it happened yesterday and ended today. And I was supposed to announce it on last week's show, and I forgot. And then I was supposed to announce it on yesterday's Nonprofits, and I forgot. This morning ended a 24-hour blog TV marathon benefit for Doctors Without Borders. And this is the second year that I've been involved. And once again, DPR Jones put me in the final position, batting cleanup after James Randi finished. So I was on beginning at around 9 o'clock this morning for my 1 hour slot. And last year, we did 2.5 hours in my 1 hour slot. And this year we did 3 hours in my one hour slot. Me, Aaron Ra, and DPR Jones taking live calls over Skype. There's still plenty of time to actually donate to that, and there's an eBay auction as well. And one of the things that will be auctioned off as soon as I get them a picture is the wig, dress, and that was going to be it. The wig and the dress that I wore when I did the drag show, we're going to auction off for Doctors Without Borders. And PZ asked if we were also going to auction off the undergarments. So the super large turbo 52 double D bra that we found will be included along with the dress and the wig. So let's bid very high for my undergarments from the drag show. Right.
What could you possibly do with a bra that long? I guess you could make a hell of a slingshot with it.
I showed them I can actually fit a single cup over my head with my headphones on. It was amazing. That thing is ginormous. All right, now we can go under.
Okay. Well, I guess before I get to my topic here, we got an email earlier this week from an individual who was thanking us for being so openly gay-friendly. And so I wanted to kind of clarify something here. I'm not only openly gay-friendly, I'm actually openly gay and have been for my entire tenure on this show and for years prior to that. And so I just wanted to say we appreciate the sentiment, especially that you're getting something out of the show and that you feel respected and appreciated and everything. But one thing I want to clarify for anybody out there who's gay, you don't have to thank people for being decent human beings.
Exactly.
This is what we do here. The level of acceptance here among the ACA members is the minimum you should expect from anyone out there. So, you deserve respect and decent treatment just because you're human.
The Atheist Experience, doing the absolute minimum since 1998.
That's right. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there so that we know that.
Ideally, it would be nice if we lived in a world where we no longer had to make a special effort. I mean,
Right.
we should thank people for anything they do anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when people are just doing what is right, I think I guess it's still nice to say thank you. But
sure.
Boy,
Yeah.
wouldn't it be nice to live in a world where this is just what people did,
Right. Yeah.
or that there wasn't an issue any longer to actually have to do anything about.
Yeah. Well, I guess the thing that kind of makes me sad about someone who feels the need to thank us for being decent human beings is that where that comes from. That comes from people experiencing not being well treated simply because they're gay. And that's just insane. And on that note, another announcement, Don't Ask, Don't Tell officially ends in 2 days. So September 20th, that Don't Ask, Don't Tell is history.
So hide your sailors. We're coming for them.
That's right. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about. Last Sunday, we had an awesome guest from Planned Parenthood Austin, Sarah Wheat. And she was talking to us about some of the struggles that Planned Parenthood has gone through recently. This is kind of like a larger issue that the whole national organization has had to contend with as well. But in particular, Planned Parenthood Austin, this idea about defunding Planned Parenthood. And lots of legislatures throughout the country are doing this. What they're doing is they are taking the funding that would ordinarily be spent on Planned Parenthood and clinics that provide basic health care for underserved populations. They're diverting it to these crisis pregnancy centers. It's part of this whole anti-abortion rhetoric that, somehow there's these massive numbers of abortions that Planned Parenthood is providing, and if only they would take away all their money, then they wouldn't be able to do abortions anymore. Never mind that taxpayer money can't be spent to fund abortions. So I just wanted to point out a couple of things about the local Planned Parenthood chapter that people may not be aware of. Planned Parenthood Austin serves 33,000 men, women, and teens every year in the Austin area. A lot of these people will come into Planned Parenthood clinics in part because they have no other health care options available. Planned Parenthood serves people on a sliding scale. And as an example here, it's very cost-effective primary health care. They charge just $100 for a well woman exam that includes, my screen's going away here, that includes screening for breast and cervical cancer, as well as anemia, hypertension, and diabetes. And for politicians out there who are pro-life, one of the things that you need to understand about that is that diabetes and hypertension in particular can threaten not only the life of the woman, but also the life of any child she might be carrying. So this is a critically important health screening that is now threatened because of funding changes. So as part of that 33,000 people that Planned Parenthood Austin serves every year, they provide over 26,000 birth control services. So that might be, IUDs, birth control pills, whatever birth control options someone requests when they come in. They also do over 5,900 breast cancer screenings, over 5,500 cervical cancer screenings. They treat more than 16,000 STIs every year. They perform over 6,500 HIV tests, and they provide about 103 HPV vaccines in an average year. And again, this is basic health care that people can't get anywhere else. So we get a lot of email from time to time about, what are some secular charities that we can support? Well, Planned Parenthood is one of them. So, we also have a list that we publish from time to time. Matt just participated this morning for Doctors Without Borders, which is another secular charity. So there are plenty out there. We've published a list on our website before. I'll update that list and we'll publish it again. In addition, the Capital Area Food Bank is another secular charity in the Austin area, and they are actually providing a lot of assistance to the victims of the Bastrop fires. So there are some options here for where to spend your money so that it won't go to religious charities out there. And as a word of warning there, be careful when you decide to provide money or goods or whatever to a charity if you really don't want to fund a religious charity, because a lot of religious charities now have started using secular sounding names. So just vet your charities carefully before you give them money. Oh, and there's also our Atheists Helping the Homeless charity in Austin as well. So there's plenty of opportunities to do good things. And that's, I think you guys took on the HPV vaccine in Perry and Bachman, and so we won't belabor that point, but other than to say I'm a real fan of the of vaccines for cancer, and HPV is one of them. The Hep B vaccine is another that actually prevents liver cancer, and I think that just a blanket statement here, I think Perry did the right thing for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And it's disappointing to see him coming back now and saying that was the wrong thing to do.
The nice thing about doing, or the bad thing about doing the right thing for the wrong reasons, is that you'll also cave and try to reverse things for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
But.
Okay.
All right, and I got vaccinated yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah, this year's flu shot
All
while
right.
we were out. So we'll go ahead and take some calls real quick. We got David in Athens. How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Good. Hey, I have a few questions. I don't think they've been addressed on your show at one time, so I wanted to start by verifying the impression that atheists has given me of the atheist belief system.
Okay. We can start with atheism isn't a belief system.
Well, you have to believe in something, right?
Sure, but
Yeah.
I mean, well, I guess no, you technically don't. I guess that's theoretically possible, but what I'm saying is that atheism in and of itself isn't a belief system.
Okay, well, let me see if my definition of what atheism is kind of matches what yours is, okay? Let me see if I'm kind of valid on that. What I gather from your show and the other 2%ers who use Satan's church to promote their agenda, you basically negate the existence
Seriously?
of God for lack of acceptable evidence.
Okay, first of all, you want to rephrase that? I mean, I really hate to hang up on the first caller just because you're an ass.
Okay. I'm an ass because I make a statement you don't agree with?
We're not Satan's church. Guess what? We don't believe in that
I
either.
didn't say you're Satan's church. I said that it's on Satan's church. You're promoting your agenda on Satan's church. Satan's church is referred to as the internet. Okay?
Oh,
So it's not
Okay.
your fault.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Well,
I don't keep up to date with all of the superstitious bullcrap.
Okay, well, I'm just letting you know that's what it's referred to as.
Sure, and actually we
In
do
the
our
modern
show.
day Babylonia that we live in.
We do our show on public access TV. It just happens to also get broadcast over Satan's church.
Okay, well, that's cool. I mean, wherever you 2%ers can fit in, that's cool.
2%ers.
2%ers,
Hey, guess
huh?
what? Wrong.
Okay, 5%? I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's part of the problem is that nobody really knows, although the estimates in the United States go as high as 11 to 14%, but worldwide,
Admittedly,
but worldwide, atheists are the third largest group when you ask about people's religious beliefs.
okay, well, all right, wait, beyond that, let me just go ahead and finish out my question.
Well,
that
I
was
want to.
beginning with.
I will let you finish your question, but I'd like to know what difference does it make whether we're 2%, 1%, 0.5%, or 80%? What difference does that make to whether or not we're correct?
Well, because logically, when you point out that you are on only 2%, and then you say that the majority of scientists all believe what you believe, or they all are taking the atheist position of not believing in a God, then you're basically saying that the majority of scientists that fit in the 2% or 5% or 14% or however percent you want to say are basically the minority. They're not. I mean, you're basically admitting that your belief system, which it is,
No, it's
No, it's
not.
not.
isn't really holding up any water in society. So anyway,
Okay. First of all, if you really want to find out what we believe, it's best to ask us rather than come in and just spit out your
Yeah.
garbage and see whether or not
I'm
we
not
have.
spitting out garbage. I'm trying to ask you, and
You are spitting out garbage because, first of all, you're implying with this 2%er that you're trying to diminish any impact we have, and only an idiot who thinks that the number of people who believe something is any testimony towards whether or not that's actually true. Then you make a huge math error because, first of all, I'm not saying that the majority of scientists, when you look at, for example, the National Academy of Scientists, the overwhelming majority of those do not believe in a God or a personal God, etc. And so when we're talking about the elite of the elite scientists, what difference does it make? The idea that those who are best educated and best understand the subject are less likely to believe at a significant percentage doesn't make any difference whether the total of those people with respect to the population is under 10% or under 2% or under 1%.
Okay, well, let me ask you this real quick. On that basis, are you saying that, basically from what I've gathered from most of them talking to you, that different atheists, that it seems that you all rely solely on scientists or philosophers for your information or facts. Is that accurate?
Rely solely on scientists and philosophers for information and facts.
What else is there?
Well, I'm not quite sure what you're,
So my point is so why is it that you only believe the people that back or protect your ways of thinking are the ones that are telling the truth?
No, I don't
Why is it
believe...
that you will boast about the 75% of physicists who are atheists, but not accept the 80% of genealogists that support the theory of theism?
The 80% of what?
Genealogists.
Genealogist?
Yeah.
What's a genealogist?
Somebody who studies the gene, DNA, the study of DNA.
No.
No, actually. You don't get to make stuff up. I'm sorry. But in any case, it doesn't matter. I've already said the number of people who believe something is irrelevant. I don't accept what people say just because they agree with me. First of all, I used to be a fundamentalist Christian for 20-some-odd years and was going to be...
You were what?
I was a fundamentalist Christian for 20-some-odd years and was studying...
What is a fundamentalist Christian?
Somebody who believes in generally a literal interpretation of the Bible.
Seriously,
Okay.
where have you been?
You don't know what a fundamentalist Christian is, and you're calling us to tell us that we're working... You're a prank caller, aren't you?
I'm a what?
You're a prank caller, aren't you?
A prank caller, yeah.
Well, you don't seem to understand anything, and you just keep talking nonsense. And then when I toss out,
Well, as a fundamentalist Christian, then you should also know that atheism doesn't really fit the definition of what you consider it is. It's actually Satanism.
okay,
So
you are
You're
a
an
complete
idiot.
idiot.
okay, yeah, but guess what? You know what the Bible says?
I don't care what the
Who
Bible
cares?
says, and you don't get to say. Bye. Atheism is not Satanism.
Well, besides which, Satanism is a Christian construct
Yeah.
anyway.
I mean, now Levian Satanism, which stupidly adopts a name from
Yeah.
Christianity to support a fully secular worldview, that's not born of Christianity outside of the name. And by the way, I would tend to agree more with Levian Satanists than I would with you, even though I think they're really stupid for using that name.
Yeah.
But thanks for calling, and somebody's got to carry the flag for the idiots. But all right, we've got Ronald in Woodbridge. How are you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, how would you describe order?
How would we describe order?
Order?
I'm sorry, because how would order exist if there wouldn't be a God or a higher genius?
Can you say that all again? Because you've completely lost me already.
Yeah.
If there were no God,
Okay.
wouldn't it just be random chaos? There
Why?
would be no order.
Why would you
Yeah.
think that? Why would you think there would be chaos if there wasn't a God?
Well, shouldn't there be some form of a higher genius?
A higher genius?
Yes, that would cause order.
No, order doesn't need to be cause. Order is the product of the physical laws of the universe.
Well, what if we could describe God like as a mathematical force of nature
Okay.
instead of a being?
Mathematics deals with quantities and actions. There's not like a formula for deriving characteristics of personhood or something like that. I mean, if you came up with an equation that proves God, I think you both misunderstand the God concept and math, which you can go talk to Chris
Yeah.
Langan about that. But
Well, I mean, like when you look at like universal constants in nature, like the pi of circle, or like Fibonacci and like the speed of light, like something had to, some form of order had to have caused that.
Well, why do you think that some form of order was required to cause that?
Well, how would it come out of randomness? Because wouldn't if it was randomness, it would be disorder.
Well, look, as Matt explained, some of this apparent order is just a product of the laws of physics. Okay, if you walk on a beach and you see patterns in the sand that are caused by the waves, that's physics in action. That's an example of how nature can cause what appears to be order.
Yeah, but I mean, like physics is order.
No,
well-
physics is physics. Okay.
Yeah, but it's not disorder.
Some of
If
physics
that
is
were-
disorder. I mean, some of physics deals with disorder.
I'm really desperate
yeah.
for you to get to like a point, because you toss out pi and the Fibonacci, and you clearly, all right, I don't want to say clearly, I don't want to be, you don't seem to have a grasp on the concepts that you're tossing around, and you don't seem to have any way to get to a point other than to make what seems to me to be an argument from ignorance or personal incredulity, that you can't see how order can arise without a God. And my question stands from the beginning: why do you think that a God is required for order? And your only response is that you evidently can't see any other way that order could arise. And that is, by definition, an argument from ignorance. As a fallacy.
Okay, well,
I'm not saying you're an idiot. I'm just saying that's a fallacy.
Well, what would you say about that? Like, how would, like,
I don't know.
what is your theory?
I don't
on
know.
order?
I don't know. Why would I need one? Let's say I don't have it. I don't have any clue at all how to explain order in the universe. That may not be actually accurate, but I'll go ahead and say it. I don't know. I have no idea. Now where are we?
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay. Thanks. Wow. I don't know seems to be a perfectly acceptable answer.
Yeah.
Who knew? I didn't. Kyle in Missoula, how are you?
Hi. Yeah. Am I on?
You are.
You are.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the show. I've been watching for a few months now over Ustream and going back over reruns.
Thanks.
I'm 16, and I am an atheist. And how I really got into atheism, I went to church when I was really young, but that pretty much stopped by the time I was 8 or 9. And then like a year or two after that, I found out what the word atheist meant because my sister told me that she was one, and I thought it was a pretty nasty word.
Ooh, yeah.
And I didn't really think about it too much until I saw Religulous my freshman year, the Bill Maher thing, and after that I started watching a lot of his stuff, and that's where I saw Richard Dawkins for the first time, and then didn't watch really Bill Maher, and then Chris Richens, Sam Harris, and my atheism kind of just evolved from there to become more and more rational. My question concerns both the sacrifice of Jesus and the sort of like believing in belief that Dan Dennett came up with, that you should do everything in your power to believe. First off, I agree with you guys that God's sacrificing himself to himself and then reviving himself, flying up to heaven to be worshipped for all eternity isn't a lot of a sacrifice. And it actually was on your show that I heard that argument for the first time. So, I don't know,
Cool, something stuck.
So I guess I'd just like to hear your thoughts on it, but I think with a lot of the vast majority of Christians who don't really know their Bible, the story of Jesus has a little bit of a different meaning to them. I think it like probably even more so than the fact that he was tortured and died for their sins. I think they kind of look up to him because he represents this, like, I do believe, I do believe, I do kind of idea. I think a lot of them kind of see him as like a sort of champion of this, even though that's not really what his story is supposed to represent.
Yeah, it's a bit about framing, I guess, in how they choose to look at this, because they're focused on specific aspects of this story. Wow, there is a being who made the greatest sacrifice you could possibly make, and he did it for me. And that's what they take away from that. And it was the greatest possible demonstration of love to take on this burden of all the things that I'm ever going to do wrong and die in order to forgive me for all that. And then they ignore all of the things surrounding like that, like the absurdity of the idea of sin or that of original sin, the absurdity of the notion that the death of anyone could be considered a way of atoning for any sin.
Yeah, the substitutionary atonement concept.
And even if that person was a god, it's still absurd because if I owe Jen $5, my dad could pay Jen off. If I've committed a crime against somebody, nobody else can just say, "Oh, you're forgiven." Or if I've committed a crime against Jen or insulted her in some way, Jen's the only one who can actually forgive me. Oh, yes, they'll say, well, God's doing the forgiving. So, yes, there's this idea of sacrificing himself to himself to serve as a loophole for rules that he evidently isn't in control of, other than being able to make loopholes. It's just nuts. And what it's done is, somebody asked me on Facebook yesterday, where I've talked about the fact that the New Testament is more immoral than the Old Testament. And part of it is this doctrine of hell, and part of it is this idea of salvation and redemption and substitutionary atonement and blood sacrifice, and the absurdity of a God dying for a weekend in order to, create this loophole. But if you really want to see the difference in the effects of what these doctrines have, take a look at the most fundamentalist Jews and the most fundamentalist Christians and compare them. It's, they're both absurd. They're both harmful. I mean, I have lots of friends who are Jewish, but amongst the most orthodox, fundamentalist of all Jews, they're doing real harm to people. There are people, Hasidic Jews who are just now gaining access to information in the free world and being able to come out about this. But still, the difference in how they act with regard to society and other people, Very, very different. The Jewish idea is internal, it's communal, the rest of you can rot, essentially.
Yeah.
And the Christian idea is we need to fix all of you everywhere. And you need to buy into this absurdity. It's night and day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I kind of more talking about, like, just how they don't really know the story all that well. They just know the basics. You know, he tortured, died, whatever, went up to your thing. And
Yeah.
I think that a lot of them, because they don't really know the story, they kind of like say, they kind of think that he was more just a champion of, you know, doing that. I do believe, more than like actually, you know, I mean, I think they do accept like the basic premise of he was his son or whatever. But I think that, you know, I've seen when you're debating them or something and you address the actual story of Jesus and what it's supposed to represent, and I think they're kind of just stuck in this kind of making him of just a champion of what they're doing.
Well, we already know that people are convinced that that God thinks the same things that they do.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think Don brought that up in one of his episodes, that everybody's God is basically a one-off. It's whatever they create in their head. You know, their God, interestingly enough, always believes the same things they do. And their God always hates the same people they hate.
Yeah, reality is the stuff that doesn't go away when you
Yeah.
stop believing in it. And you know, it'd be an interesting. It's an experiment we can't ever run, but if we were to essentially erase religion from the map, and all traces, so that nobody could dig up anything that somebody had written before or anything else. And like if we all woke up tomorrow with no memories, no books, no internet, no any kind of recordings of history, and we had to rebuild society, would the same religions come about? Would the same stories come about? And I think it's crazy to think that they would.
Yeah. Doesn't seem likely.
Maybe something similar. But anyway, thanks, Kyle.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
As a reminder, after the show's over, we're going to dinner at El Arroyo. They'll put the address up here in just a second. It's a live call-in show. The phones are behaving a little bit better today
Yeah, they seem to be
than
good.
in past weeks. I think we're starting to find out how to do some tweaking. But we've got Anthony in Sacramento. How are you?
Hey, pretty good. How you guys doing?
Good.
Not too bad.
Okay, well, my background, I'm still stuck somewhere between a believer and, I guess, an atheist. And one of the things I've done over the years is listen to a lot of, you know, the Christian side, the Christian talk shows, you know, whether it be on the internet or on the radio. And one of the things that they were always saying was how reliable the Gospels are, and how you know, they would hold up if it was in a court of law, it would hold up that Jesus was who he says he was. He resurrected. And
Yeah,
whatnot.
that's just wrong.
Yeah.
Because courts don't accept spectral evidence. So there's no way that nonsense about miracles could hold up in a court of law.
Okay, I understand that, but there was other things like how there was ancient cities that they spoke about in the Bible, and you know, let's say 100 years ago they were just considered myths, and then through our archaeology they've been dug up and confirmed that these cities actually existed. And so I guess my question is, why are the Gospels considered to be not a reliable source? And I've heard people like you know, Richard Dawkins, you know, he's mentioned this a couple times, whatnot. So, you know, I'm just trying to get all this information and get it, you know, sorted out, you know, for myself.
Well, I guess I have a question. You said that there are cities mentioned in the Gospels that were considered to be myths, and now they're supposedly finding archaeological evidence of them. Do you have an
Yeah,
example
so-
of? You have an example of that?
No, because I'm really bad about that. And one of the shows
Okay.
I've heard it on is like, you've probably heard of the guy, Hank, the Bible Answer Man. He used to be a show. I used to listen to on the way
Yeah,
home.
Hank Handra.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're
exactly,
confusing.
exactly.
I think you're confusing the Gospels with the rest of the Bible in general.
Yeah, because I'm aware of the fact that there were some cities mentioned in the Old Testament that were considered to be, well, there was no evidence that they ever existed, and perhaps recently there's been some archaeological evidence that suggests some of them may have actually been real places.
Yeah.
But the very fact that there were real places recorded doesn't mean that the more fantastic stories of the Bible is true. In fact, it doesn't mean any part of the Bible is true. because all the other stuff has to have evidence that supports it on its own. So, if we talk about, stories, I mean, one of the things we bring up is that, if you look at the Iliad and the Odyssey, it actually talks about real places that actually existed when those epics were written. That doesn't mean that any of the stories in there are true.
Yeah, we've covered this before with like Russell's example of if archaeologists discover New York, that doesn't make the stories about Spider-Man true.
Right. Okay. I do agree with that logic, and I'm a logical person, and so I kind of like to take things in, and they got to make sense. Things have to make sense to me. I've been that way my whole entire life, and if I don't understand something, then it just I'll tell you I don't understand it. Make it make sense to me. So, but from your point of view, though, why are the Gospels or the Bible considered to be not true?
Well, it's not that I consider them not true. There are certainly true things in there. Why I don't consider them to be very reliable is because we have copies of translations of copies of oral records that were written down. We don't have the original manuscripts. We don't know who the authors were. We don't have necessarily any first-hand eyewitness accounts. And even if we did, eyewitness accounts of things that are extraordinary aren't sufficient evidence to accept the claims on their own. So when you've got a collection of stories, the example that I've used before, and I mentioned this morning on the benefit, is excuse me, you can actually go find somebody right now who will tell you their alien abduction story, and they will tell it to you in great detail. They will be sincere. They are convinced that this happened to them. It's a direct experience. They're reporting it to you firsthand. And they can direct you to other people who have had similar experiences, and they will share similar accounts. Do you believe that what they're reporting actually happened? Most people don't. Most people would say, I'm fine with believing that you believe something happened to you, but that's a rather outlandish claim, and it's not enough for me just to take on your word, on your say-so. And these are, for all intents and purposes, these are entirely mundane claims. Yes, it's extraordinary that aliens might travel here and abduct somebody, but there's nothing supernatural about it. The idea of, space travel, etc., there may be roadblocks that prevent this from actually happening, but nobody in their story of alien abductions is necessarily positing something supernatural. On the other hand, if you take a bunch of accounts written second or third hand decades after events by people we don't know and can't verify, that make claims that are far more outlandish and directly supernatural, suddenly those things become believable to people because they've just been around for so long, as if they come true as the pages foxed. I can't buy that at all.
Right, and so that's probably one of the strongest arguments, I guess, as far as the Gospels, as far as when they were written and when the stories actually began after the life and death of Christ, right? That's probably one of the biggest things about that.
Well, yeah, it's just that even if we had a book that was purported to be Jesus' own story, explaining, the miracles that he did, would I believe it? No. Because a miracle claim needs to be supported with more than a story. You would think in an era where you can go on YouTube and watch, not only can you see special effects in movies, but magicians and other people pretending to do these strange supernatural feats, and yet we know it's fake.
Right.
The mere fact that an event's been reported, I don't care how trustworthy. My mother, who I generally trust, she sent me a message once that said, "There is a God. Your mom wouldn't lie to you." And I said, "I don't think you're lying. I just think you're wrong."
Right. Right. A long time ago, here's some food for thought for the listeners out there. A long time ago, a friend told me, and it was true when he said it, and I still believe it to be true today, is that if you take a little infant baby and tell him that his great-grandfather's Bigfoot, more than likely he'll grow up to be an adult believing that his great-grandfather's Bigfoot. So kind of how, let's say, your mother or, let's say, my parents should just come to just believe as opposed to using their reason and logic, at least to ask questions, about these sort of things.
Well, actually, I actually disagree with that, because I think that if you want a child to grow up believing something absurd, you have to do quite a bit of indoctrination to get them to believe that. So, I mean, one of the things that people commonly tell their kids growing up is that Santa Claus is real. Santa Claus brings presents. And kids get to some point in early childhood and they lose that belief. And they lose that belief because even though they're told that and everybody plays along, there's no heavy indoctrination there that convinces them that if you don't believe in Santa, not only will you not get presents, but you're going to burn in hell.
Right.
And,
there's not an incentive to counter the objections that they're going to encounter in the
right.
real world.
But this is what we do to people when it comes to religion. We heavily indoctrinate children to believe that something really awfully bad will happen to them for all eternity if they reject this belief. And it has a very powerful hold on people.
Right. It's funny you should say that, because on one of the shows I was listening to on the way home from work, Catholic Answers live show, and a guy called in. He was concerned about his daughter because his daughter's little girl was worried that she was the possibility of her, burning in hell forever. And it was, and I was like, man, that's kind of a shitty place for a little girl to be, worried about.
Yeah, it's sad, and it's part of the aspect of religious indoctrination that Dawkins first, and I would agree, would consider to be child abuse. Not necessarily the same or to the same degree as starving a kid or beating them mercilessly, but we can't underestimate the impact of psychological abuse. And if you're raising a kid to live in fear of anything to that degree, I think it counts. But anyway, on
that's
that
why most people end up you'll have people who they may be believers, but then all of a sudden in their life they end up finding God. It's because of that overwhelming guilt that they feel for their life or whatever reason it may be.
Yeah, and there are people who have escaped religion who still can't seem to fully escape that guilt and fear. Marlene Winnell, a psychologist that we've talked about before, has dubbed that religious trauma syndrome, and she actually has a retreat regularly with individuals who are suffering terribly from not just the loss. I mean, there's a lot of impact of giving up one's religious beliefs. There's the loss of your family on many occasions, potentially your job in some not quite as common cases, but your entire social network. Every belief that you've built on this flimsy, corroded foundation needs to be reevaluated, and that's a lot of work, and it's a lot of effort that not everybody has necessarily been equipped to do because they've been trained a different way. And then you live in this constant fear of, what if I'm wrong? And oh my gosh, I still have nightmares about these stories about hell and things. We have to do a lot better at helping people who've escaped the tyranny of religion. But we also need to keep getting information out like this so that hopefully even those people who are believers will at least try to avoid that level of indoctrination to where they're terrifying their kids and keeping psychologists in business. Not that they wouldn't be. But anyway, on that note, I got to let you go, Anthony. I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks. We've got Nathan in Boston. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. I have a quick question for you guys.
Okay.
Basically, I was watching the show with my friend. It's really, really great. And my question is, basically, what do you guys think about reincarnation? Because what theoretically happens to energy and or aware consciousness on Earth when death, is present?
Okay. I don't see any reason, there's no evidence to support the idea that reincarnation occurs. And I think what happens to our consciousness is that when your brain dies, your consciousness ceases to exist.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a different theory on it. I'm not atheist. It's just a really kind of interesting thing to me because either for me it's more of a mental block in myself because obviously when your brain dies the energy goes away and there's nothing left to, you're not aware of the change, you're not aware of what you'll become, but I feel like it needs to go somewhere, partly because,
Why?
I was a Catholic earlier on and I stopped going to church.
Yes,
Maybe
except
that's
that, okay,
But
we're using a really loaded and potentially useless term here by talking about energy.
okay.
I think you're reading more into this usage of energy certainly than I am, because in the strictest sense, the energy that's in my body is, a product of electrochemical reactions and things like that, and it simply dissipates as it would be with a battery that went dead. It doesn't go somewhere to be something else, and even if it did, it certainly isn't me.
Yeah, it could be anything. I mean, it could be a piece of wood. It's
Yeah, my
definitely
body's
not-
going to decompose, and the elements of well, actually, my body may not, but we can talk about that another time. And it becomes other things, but it's not me. It's not like I have been reincarnated as even fertilizer. I'm not even being reincarnated as a decaying corpse. All of the evidence points to the conclusion that I cease to exist when my brain stops functioning. And we can see this in people who are actually alive, where you have severe brain damage that resets somebody's personality or that causes severe amnesia. What I am, my hopes, my fears, my dreams, my preferences, my thoughts, my memories, they are all part and parcel of what my brain actually does. And by manipulating how my brain works, we can actually change all that. People have suffered or gone through traumas that have resulted in severe personality shifts, including what would be, under almost anybody's definition, the previous person is dead and some new person is there. We've seen hemispherectomies where the brain has two separate personalities after the surgery, one of which is a theist and one is an atheist. I mean, that to me just kind of settles it. Any idea of souls or afterlives or things carrying on afterwards. As far as I can tell, as my brain, I am what my brain does. When my brain stops doing, I am not. Which almost sounds as like Buddhist is, where does the flame go when the candle is blown out?
So maybe a better question for you guys would be, what is the whole atheist take on death?
I'm dead.
Yeah, you go. You're done.
That's it. So the whole view on it is just basically, do whatever you can do while you're here, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even if that's not true, why would you want to live any other way? The odds are that this is the one and only life that you're going to get. Your one and only go around. You're not going to get to go to some heaven where you get to get reunited with people that you treated poorly, so you treat them right the first time. You're not going to get reincarnated and maybe be, some kind of lottery winner in the next life. So you might as well do the best with what you can with the one life that you've got. And if it turns out that I'm wrong, if after I die, I am suddenly consciously aware of something, be it some afterlife or some reincarnation or whatever, wow, that's a great surprise, and I'll have to work from there. But boy, there's no reason to think it's true.
Yeah, I have to say it is a really interesting way to think of it all, because it's much more realistic. Why base all of your efforts towards this life on something else when you can just base all of your efforts right now? That is much more concrete to me than.
And I find it rather repugnant. The people, I'll let you go. Right.
No, go ahead.
The people who actually believe that there is a God or some governing body or supernatural agent who set up a system wherein you go through and you have all of the experiences of a life, all of the beauty and the love and the pain and the learning and everything, and you get to the end of it, and it's like a big cosmic screw you, because that life was just the place to wipe your feet when you get to the real life.
Yeah.
That was your testing ground. Or, how crazy evil is that? I mean,
pretty creepy evil, yeah.
you're a rat in some being's maze, and only when you find the appropriate exit do you get to go to the real life? That's just nuts.
Yeah, that's a lot of BS.
Yeah. Well, cool. Thanks for calling, Nathan. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you too. Thanks a lot. Good.
Great. Thanks.
You wanted to hit something on there as well, I think.
Well, it's this idea that, if we get another life, or, whether that's reincarnation or heaven or whatever, it diminishes the value of not only what we experience in this life as we go through it, but also it diminishes the impact of people who are actually suffering. So, it makes it easier to overlook the fact that people die every day for lack of clean water or food or basic medical care, because, it's all going to be better in the next life. Well, what if it's not? What if they suffered and died and there was no point, nothing? I mean, this belief that it's all going to be better later on, I think, is one of the things that stands in our way of actually doing something to make things better for humans.
It's like the people who run around with a lottery ticket constantly thinking that they're going to win that next drawing.
Yeah.
I'm going to win, I'm going to win.
Yeah.
Wait till I hit the lottery on Friday, I'm going to go buy a new Aston Martin, I'm
Right.
going to take a cruise, I'm sure that can be very pleasant, but when you have to pay your bills and you've spent the money on lottery
Right.
tickets, that can be a little unpleasant, and maybe it wasn't so wise to engage in that fantasy. Is it Jocken in Sweden?
Hello?
Hello.
Orkelunja,
Yeah,
Sweden?
what's up?
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. You?
Not too
Good.
bad.
All right. Well, basically, I wanted to just ask about your perspective on personal experiences.
I think if you rewind the tape to when I was talking about testimonial evidence, that kind of sums it up. Somebody else's personal somebody else's personal experience doesn't really carry a lot of weight for me. It's helpful if somebody has a personal experience. They put their hand on the stove and it got burned, and that's their personal experience, and they warn me about it. Well, as long as I can investigate to find out whether or not it's true, I've learned something useful. If their personal experience is something that I can't possibly investigate, then their personal experience is pretty much useless to me.
All right. Well, I have a bit of a personal dilemma, actually. I'm gonna try to keep this as brief as possible.
Okay.
But I was raised in a Christian home. I've been an atheist for about 3 years now. And a while ago, my sister moved to England, where she attended some kind of Christian camp. And on that camp, apparently, a lady walked up to her and basically told her that God had told her things about my sister's life that no one could possibly know. And after that, like a week later, 2 random people walked up to her in the street asking if she had a grandmother called Sanja, that's our grandmom, and that they needed to pray for her pain because we actually have a grandmother that's in a lot of pain right now. And, either I have to say that this was all a big coincidence and they were lucky guessers, or that my sister's a liar, which is, kind of hard for me to do this from my own family,
Well, I don't necessarily think that those are the only 2 options.
Yeah. I had a question for you. How many people do you think they walked up and asked these random questions of before they hit somebody that answered, yeah, that's exactly right. How could you know that?
I don't know, actually. It just seems so.
Well, see,
it's kind of fantastic.
The way you've told the story, and I'm not calling you a liar, I don't believe it, and I don't believe that your sister has accurately relayed the story to you, because I don't know. Unless I've been to England once. It never struck me as the sort of place where random people would just walk up and say, do you have a grandmother named so-and-so? And first of all, I mean, she had this interaction with somebody at a Christian thing who told her that God said this. Okay, fake psychics and mediums and stuff do that crap all the time, and I'm generally unimpressed. And then you said after that happened, 2 other random people walked up to her like on the street to say this. I have a hard time believing that. I think your sister experienced something that she couldn't explain, and in the process of telling you the story, she either forgot details or embellished details to make it seem more impressive. And that doesn't necessarily make her a liar. We are very faulty recorders of the events that happen to us. And we make mistakes and we embellish things without any intent to deceive. We are trying to relay information accurately. And we're just bad at it, especially when something has had a significant impact on us. So while it's interesting, and I can't say that it didn't happen, I don't have any explanation for you other than I don't accept the story as it's presented, and until we can replicate this under some kind of test conditions, I don't have any good reason to believe that this happened.
Yeah, that's what I thought too, at first. That was my take. Maybe she over-exaggerated. But, what makes it hard for me is that, this was actually, it didn't happen on the same day. It was a week apart.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter. My problem is that, how can you over-exaggerate a name and, like, a fact? Now, how can you over-exaggerate the situation that two people walked up to her and asked?
Well, all right.
Grandmom.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, we don't really know anything about. I mean, I don't dispute your sister's claim that it's people that she didn't know who walked up to her, but there's a couple of things that we can't verify here. First of all, how do we know that the people who walked up to her didn't know each other and they didn't know the first person? Because what this seems like is if your sister is telling the truth, it seems like she's being scammed by some people. And, I mean, this is not unheard of. People that want to scam you, they will say some things to get your trust and then work as a team to do whatever it is they're going to do. And I would also point out that this is kind of a cold reading technique, and it's fairly common. You see it with mediums like with John Edwards, that guy out there. And I mean, there are actually explanations for this that don't involve any kind of supernatural event.
And while I don't dispute the possibility that there's some kind of potential scam going on here, I just don't have enough information to tell anything. What I can say is that as somebody who has been an amateur magician since I was a kid, the first thing I notice is that every trick I've done for somebody gets so much better in the retelling. When somebody tells what I've done, inevitably it's a virtual impossibility. And we see this over and over again. And so it's very possible that your sister actually struck up a conversation with someone, and that in the course of this conversation, this person intuited or could have said, hey, you seem kind of down. Are you worried about something? Is there, have you got a relative that's sick or whatever? Oh, it's your grandmother. By the way, is there, this process, which is a very, very different set of circumstances from saying that a stranger came up to you and just said this. But I got to let you go with that because we're completely out of time.
Yeah, look up Darren Brown on YouTube.
Yeah.
He explains a lot.
B-E-R-R-E-N. But thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks. There's the list of the people who make the show actually happen. Thanks, Jen, for filling in. I won't be here next week. Russell will be hosting next week. And I don't know who's on with you. I don't either. We'll see you then.
Yeah, I think it's Jeff.
It's Jeff. There's 3 seconds left. As long as they didn't mute me, they heard it.